President Frank Underwood visits his father's grave in his hometown of Gaffney, South Carolina, reflecting on the lack of recognition his father received in life and how he personally paid for the gravestone. He mockingly tells his father that attendance at his own funeral will require standing in line to offer condolences. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Douglas Stamper lies in a hospital bed, recovering from severe head injuries sustained in an attack, with authorities yet to locate his car or identify any suspects. Dr. Lanwani conducts neurological tests to assess Stamper's cognitive and motor functions, finding initial signs of impairment but eventually confirming his ability to recognize images and recall basic information, including the president's name and the current year. Stamper expresses his eagerness to return to work, a sentiment that concerns de Lanwani. Later, Stamper watches news reports detailing President Underwood's struggling approval ratings and an investigation into campaign finance reform. Claire Underwood, accompanied by Gentry, visits Stamper in the hospital, relaying Frank's regards and emphasizing the White House's need for his return. They discuss the ongoing investigation and the lack of leads, as well as Dr. Lanwani's concern about prescribing strong painkillers due to Stamper's past addiction, resulting in prescriptions for antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. After the visit, Stamper takes his medication, appearing pained. Claire questions a recovering Stamper about the robbery, but he claims the attacker is a blur. She instructs him to tell the police everything he told her, but to omit her name. She then offers a seemingly heartfelt, "I was glad to see you." Stamper begins physical therapy to relearn how to walk. Released from the hospital and in a wheelchair, he tells detectives he heard a voice before the attack, but remembers nothing else. Now, using a cane and assisted by a caretaker, he receives steroid injections at a medical office. Gary shows him a card from the White House with a note from Frank and Claire, acknowledging that they had his home cleaned and the fridge stocked. Back home, Douglas watches a news report announcing a new presidential election in 2016. After Gary leaves, Douglas injects the propofol and immediately calls Seth Grayson, urgently requesting to speak to Frank about the America Works program. Later, Stamper meets a contact who speaks Russian and tasks him with finding information about a woman, offering protection in exchange. The contact wants more from Stamper, but ultimately agrees. Meanwhile, at the White House, the press discusses a future meeting with President Petrov of Russia and struggles to answer questions about the America Works program. Frank holds a meeting where he demands that all social programs requiring money come through him and expresses frustration about securing the funds needed for America Works. President Underwood unveils a major infrastructure, military and private sector initiative planned for the next 3 years, demanding a fully fleshed plan within 30 days. Afterwards, he abruptly dismisses a long-serving cabinet member, leaving the man shocked and hurt. The dismissed cabinet member, battling distress and vertigo, attempts to stage an emergency at his home, initially calling 911 and contemplating self-harm, but ultimately fails. He then, using a cane, visits President Underwood at the White House. Underwood reveals that he knows about the cabinet member's health issues and discusses his future. Simultaneously, Underwood meets with the outgoing vice president, who is resigning due to his wife's recent death. Underwood is pressured to quickly find a replacement and is given a 6-month to a year timeline for the vice president's departure. Underwood then seeks counsel from Seth, praising his recovery and loyalty. He hints at a potential role for Seth within the America Works program, dangling the opportunity for Seth to prove himself. Later, Underwood has a private conversation with Stamper, offering encouragement and support regarding his sobriety. Separately, in the war room, President Underwood is briefed on the sensitive situation in Yemen, specifically the district of Shabwa, where a planned military action risks civilian casualties and jeopardizes upcoming discussions with President Petrov. He insists on minimizing civilian casualties. Meanwhile, Claire interviews a potential ambassador, questioning his capabilities and loyalty, and reminding him of the political risks involved. Senator Mendoza makes an appearance and informs Claire that he will do a favor for her in turn for her gratitude towards him as First Lady. Stamper continues his recovery, battling the urge to relapse. Stamper, with a bandaged hand, takes medication and lies in bed, seemingly troubled. Claire finds Frank in his bedroom, eager to announce her upcoming appointment to gain service time. Frank hesitates, expressing doubts about her readiness and his own trust. The scene briefly shifts back to Stamper in bed with a cast on his hand. Seth interrupts to report that the Secretary of Defense is urgently trying to reach him, but Frank delays the call. Seth informs Frank again that the Secretary of Defense is on the line. Frank grapples with the decision, insisting he can't be a temporary president and must leave a legacy. Back in his apartment, Stamper has a paid female escort. He pays her, tells her to undress, then oddly stops her as she approaches him, holding a sedative against her neck but ultimately not using it. In a war room, military and government personnel discuss a critical situation in Yemen. Uncertain which vehicle contains Abdullah and if children are present. He inquires about war readiness and orders the strike to proceed, unsettling Claire. A government representative confirms the target's destruction, leaving Claire visibly shaken. Frank replies, "Tell them to hold, I'm on my way." Frank then meets with Claire to discuss the day's tumultuous events.